Hello, welcome to my political news opinion review of major news from April of 2020. This series is where I provide my opinion on major news and perhaps personal political/business news from the previous month. I do this as I am a politician, and so it is essential that the people constantly know my opinion on topics, so that they understand how I would react to situations in a position of power, in order to assist them or do the right thing. In April of 2020, as the world sat in lockdown, COVID-19 stimulus packages were passed, protests and politicians calling for a reopening of the lockdown, unemployment and death toll of the coronavirus, Bernie Sanders officially dropping out of the 2020 Democratic primary election, evidence of Joe Biden's sexual assault, speculation relating to North Korean dictators Kim Jong-un's health, and former Republican and current member of the House of Representatives Justin Amash launches an exploratory committee to run for president. As a response to the current situation, Congress has passed 4 stimulus/relief packages in efforts to reduce the economic and medical impacts of the crisis. 3 passed in March and 1 in April. This process shows that left-wing political positions are the only ones that truly assist during crises, as conservative Congress members have been negotiating moderate and liberal, though not progressive, agreements, something they refused to do otherwise. The first bill in response to the global crisis was the, quote, Coronavirus Preparedness and Response Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2020, end quote. This was signed by President Trump on March 6th, after passing the House 415-2 and the Senate 96-1. The law provided over $3 billion for research and development of vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics, $2.2 billion for public health funding to aid in prevention, preparedness, and response efforts, which included $950 million to support state and local agencies, almost $1 billion for medical supplies, healthcare preparedness, community health centers, and the medical surge capacity. And finally, $1.25 billion to fight COVID-19 internationally. While this was an important first step, it should have come before early March, as we knew about the devastating potential of the pandemic in January and February. The second bill was the, quote, Families First Coronavirus Response Act, signed by the President on March 18th, after passing the House 363-40-1 and the Senate 90-8. This act provided funding for free COVID-19 testing, paid leave for workers, expansions of food stamps and unemployment benefits, and additional appropriations to various government agencies for use in fighting the pandemic. This was another good response, though it was weakened due to some conservative/Republican lawmakers believing that the pandemic will be under control relatively soon, which evidence doesn't fully support. The third bill was the, quote, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, end quote, which provides for funding of various programs to assist in the fight, economic relief measures for businesses, and stimulus checks to Americans. It was signed by the President on March 26th, after previously passing the House on March 27th and the Senate on March 25th. That House date is likely inaccurate for obvious reasons. While this was very helpful for many people, it does have flaws. Dependent adults, for instance, do not receive a check, nor does the independent who claims them receive the $500 they would receive if the dependent were a child. Universities did receive funding to offset costs for students, but the university is in charge of which students receive such support. Additionally, a one-time payment severely underestimates the impact and length of this crisis, as it has already resulted in months of lost revenues and paychecks, yet may continue for many more months. The fourth bill, signed on April 24th, was the quote, Paycheck Protection Program and Health Care Enhancement Act, end quote, was largely aimed at fixing an issue that occurred from the business assistance given in the third bill, after large businesses took a majority of the funds before small businesses could. The bill refilled the fund for the sake of small businesses, as well as providing some additional healthcare funding. While certainly an important step, it is worth pointing out that state and local governments need additional funding to fight this crisis. Despite the 4 bills passed and limited funds being allotted, there is nowhere near enough federal funds going toward fighting the virus itself. Rather, most of it's going toward economic relief. Economic relief is certainly necessary, but we must fight this virus if we wish for things to finally return to normal. Various states have experienced protests from utter idiots and misinformed individuals calling for the reopening of states who are in lockdown, with some governors actually doing so. Let's be perfectly clear here. Reopening states because the pandemic's curve is flattening would be like taking off your parachute just because you're not going terminal velocity anymore. You're still gonna die. It is important that we remain in lockdown for as long as is needed, no matter how stressful, depressing, or economically awful it may be. If you want to be able to have lockdowns lifted, then you should try your best to stay healthy and demand every effort possible to find a cure for this. As for the governors choosing to reopen their states, you are choosing profits over people, which is utterly immoral and disgusting. A governor's job is to govern a state for the people, not the businesses. If you want to help the people and reopen more quickly, demand testing. Re-quarantine your states until the pandemic is truly under control, and demand federal funding for programs that fight the coronavirus and or research the cure. Over the last approximately 5 weeks, over 26 million Americans have lost their jobs and filed claims for unemployment benefits. Of course, most of these workers lost their jobs due to the pandemic. Those working for smaller businesses or as a result of larger businesses using the pandemic as an excuse to fire workers. This is in reality not fully addressed through business-focused relief, and as such, Congress and states must take action to directly benefit the workers, both who keep their employment and those who lose it. This crisis could last many more months. So, it will be up to the governments of the world to protect both workers and businesses to prevent major economic depressions. Over 200,000 people have died worldwide as a result of the coronavirus, with over 3 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 as of typing this script. This makes this pandemic responsible for more deaths than SARS, MERS, Ebola, yellow fever, and the swine flu. The pandemic has the potential to cause much more harm. And as such, I ask all people to be careful and follow safety guidelines, as that will make all of us safer. The man who has inspired a new generation of progressivism and democratic socialism in the United States. A man who refuses to allow corporations to corrupt his mission of caring for the people. And a man who ran for president to change the world forever. Twice. Bernie Sanders officially announced his withdrawal from the 2020 Democratic primary election on April 8th of 2020. Sanders seeks to influence the general election platform of Joe Biden through accumulation of delegates in the nominating process. I hope that he is successful and is influential in Biden's choice of vice president, which of course Biden has indicated will be the token female of his cabinet. Bernie has also endorsed Joe Biden as he is the Democratic nominee now. Bernie had pledged to support the eventual Democratic nominee. Personally, I seek to vote for the person I agree with most, as the first past the post voting system is the sole reason the spoiler effect exists. If you don't want me to be a spoiler vote when I vote for the Green Party nominee instead of Joe Biden, then you should fight for a change in the voting system to ranked choice or a runoff election system instead. Bernie Sanders, I love you. I pray the rest of your career and life sees plenty more successes. I thank you, and I cannot wait to hang your portrait in my future offices, whether they come from my business career or my political career. Unfortunately, ideology and cognitive issues are not the only reasons that I plan not to vote for Joe Biden. Tara Reid, a former congressional staffer, claims that Joe Biden inappropriately touched her, as well as inserted a finger into her without her consent. Reid would reveal the incident to her mother and friends at the time, but decided to stay out of the media as she had trouble coping with the fact that a man that she respected had violated her. Recently, a clip of Larry King Live surfaced from 1993. around the time of the incident, in which Reed's mother called in describing the incident in slightly vague terms, but clearer once you know of Reed's accusations. Additionally, other individuals she informed at the time have verified that she had told them of the incident. This gives Reed's claims more justification to be taken seriously and investigated. As such, I cannot support Biden unless he gives Reed her day in court and is able to prove his innocence without using his power and privilege to get out of it. The Me Too movement and establishment Democrats have accepted Biden's denial without any real questioning or investigation. This sentiment is best summarized by Nancy Pelosi justifying this by saying, quote, "Joe Biden is Joe Biden," end quote. She got that to trend on Twitter, by the way. As if someone who seems trustworthy hasn't done this before. It is simply Pelosi and the Democratic establishment deciding that Joe Biden is held by a different standard than other people, simply due to who he is. So, as of typing this script, North Korean dictator Kim Jong-Un has not appeared publicly since mid-April. And it is early May when this video was first posted, if you are watching in the future. News reports claim that after a heart surgery, Kim Jong-un is in critical condition. The oddity is that news agencies and governments around the world and at different times are providing different potential situations, ranging from Jong-un being critically ill, to being in a coma, to even potentially dead. As North Korea's constitution requires leadership of the Kim family, this means that if Kim Jong-un dies or is dead, the next dictator will be a family member. North Korea's Kim dynasty has so far been father to adult son inheritance, though not necessarily oldest child. But Jong-un's oldest semi-confirmed child is an 8-year-old girl named Kim Ju-ae. Due to Kim Ju-ae being a minor, it is almost certain that she will not be the next leader unless it is handled in a regency style that monarchies would use when children became monarch. The most likely scenario would be Kim Yo-jung, which is Kim Jong-un's younger sister and the most powerful member of the family other than Jong-un. Anybody who believes this to be, Anyone who believes this to be favorable to the current situation is likely sorely mistaken, as the Fire Nation memes suggested on Twitter are likely accurate. Yo-jung may even be the most cruel of all North Korean leaders if she takes power. There is a very unlikely scenario in which one of the less powerful figures of the Kim dynasty take power, perhaps through civil war or internal family struggles. If the world wants a more open North Korea, then the best Kim family member would likely be Kim Han-sol, the 24-year-old nephew of Kim Jong-un and son of Kim Jong-un's older brother, whom he assassinated in 2017, Kim Jongnam. Kim Han-sol is currently in hiding as assassination attempts against him have also occurred. Han-sol has expressed guilt for the Kim family's brutal leadership, expressed desires for Korean reunification, and has dreamt of returning to North Korea as its leader in order to improve the lives of the people. Han Sol would not only improve the lives of North Koreans, but have the ability to transition without major uprisings from brainwashed citizens, as he is a Kim family member. However, it is unfortunately very unlikely that Han Sol will come to power. Justin Amash announced an exploratory committee for seeking the Libertarian nomination to run for President of the United States. I think it is very late in the process for Amash to attempt this, as the only way for a successful third-party campaign would include building up name recognition as long as, or perhaps even longer, than the Democrats and Republicans get. Additionally, the Libertarian Party has already held many primaries and caucuses for the candidates who already announced. Amash is certainly trying to be principled in his beliefs, but he is in no position to do what he is currently doing. If he does manage to become the Libertarian presidential nominee, he is unlikely to receive that many votes as we have already seen so much media portraying the matchup as Biden versus Trump 1-1-1. I saw many people claiming that Amash could sway favor to President Trump if Amash managed to receive a significant percentage. But it is more likely for Amash to attract Republicans who vote for Trump simply because they prefer him over Joe Biden than he is to take Biden supporters. If this claim is related to Sanders supporters not voting for Biden, it should be noted that only 7% of Sanders supporters said they wouldn't vote for Biden, and many of them will either end up voting for Biden by November or voting for a legitimately left-wing candidate, unlike Amash. Therefore, this is simply a poor decision for Amash to make and result in undue stress and expenses. By the way, he has awful policies. Please like this video, share it with family and friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, making sure to hit the bell icon. Please also check out my Instagram, @Lopez4Okill, Twitter, @Lopez4Okill, and Facebook, facebook.com/Colby.Lopez.12, which all should be linked in the description. Please stay safe, wash your hands, understand we must still social distance, and de-stress. I'm Colby Lopez, and I approve this message.